All right, you guys, welcome back for day 2. Today we're going to be talking about the love banks, okay? So there's a couple things. There's a couple things we're going to talk about. First, we're going to talk about love banks, and next we're going to talk about the undivided attention that he talks about in the book, okay? So this was huge for us because
we weren't doing it.
Yeah, well, we weren't spending enough time together. And even when we were together, we weren't being intentional with our time and like actually paying attention to each other. And so, let's explain the love banks first.
Okay.
You want to explain them?
Yeah. So every person that we associate with, we have a love bank with them. And just like any, bank, we deposit money in or withdraw money. It's the same way. Every interaction we have with somebody, they either make a deposit in our love bank or they make a withdrawal based on the quality of that interaction. And so, that's basically the gist. If you have a pleasurable experience with somebody, that's going to make a deposit.
Pleasurable makes pleasurable. It sound sexual.
I didn't mean that.
If you have a positive experience.
Positive, that's a better word.
That's good. Sorry, keep going.
Oh, man. Yeah, so a positive experience.
We know what his first love language is. Just kidding.
So that makes a deposit. And if you look back to when you were dating, you go out of your way to make sure anytime you're with whoever you're dating, they have a positive experience. And obviously, you have enough positive experiences over time, you build your love bank deposit, or your balance is so high with that person that, basically you fall in love with them. And that can happen, with anybody. Go ahead.
Yeah, so basically it's just really important that with our spouse, we're making sure that we're making deposits and not always making withdrawals. Because pretty soon, if you're making enough withdrawals, then you don't like them anymore, and you're like,
fall out of love with
yeah. So we have 2 homework assignments for you this week, okay? Or tonight. So the first homework assignment is I want you to sit down. If you're doing this with your spouse, sit down with your spouse.
Brain.
And think about what your spouse does to make deposits into your love bank and what your spouse does to make withdrawals. Because everyone does both. Like, for instance...
Well, we didn't even recognize. Like, when we were going through our issues, we honestly didn't... and that's why the first activity that we had you do, or the homework from yesterday, was so important.
Because then
you know their emotional needs. But we didn't even recognize when we were making withdrawals, and when we were in just a bad situation, we were just making withdrawals constantly. And we just didn't recognize it. And so...
Yeah, so some examples that we were kind of thinking about before we did this, like some withdrawals. Like, for instance, I have my own business, so when I'm like preoccupied and I'm on my phone a lot and I'm not paying attention to him, that's a withdrawal. He's annoyed, right? So I had to be aware of that, and he had to let me know that bugged him so that I could work on that, and I could be really intentional with when I worked and when I had family time and that stuff. One of my withdrawals, or one of his withdrawals for me, is when he, like, one of my love languages is quality time. Like, I like quality time, all that stuff. And so when he calls me and he tells me he's going to be home late again from work, that's like an immediate, like, come on. And I'm frustrated. And that's a withdrawal. Even though it's like kind of out of his control, to me, I'm like, he loves working. So in my brain, I'm like, he would rather be working than be with me right now. And so it's always a withdrawal. And so just being aware of those things. One of my love language is smell. No, not really, but kind of. I love scents. I love smell. So when he wears cologne, I'm like, and that's like an automatic deposit. That's a really easy one.
Yeah, that's easy. And that's something, honestly, I honestly didn't do before.
Come here, bud.
But honestly, it just took her communicating to me that she likes it when I smell good, which
it's probably because you smell like cow poop most of the time.
That doesn't help.
Yeah.
So.
But that's what we're talking about. Like, it's so important to know what your spouse likes, because it's something as simple as that. He never knew that I liked cologne until I was like, hey, I really like it when you smell good. makes me like you even more, you know, like, and so it's those easy things. So take some time, sit down and think about it. When my spouse, like when I feel like I really love my spouse, like what are the little things that he does? Is it when he's like another thing, like when he's playing with the kids and he's being really sweet, that's like a huge deposit. I'm like, oh my gosh, you are adorable right now. So it's like those little things. So make a list, both deposits and withdrawals, because you guys need to be aware of both. And then if you can, communicate those with your spouse so that they're aware, and do both of them. You got the whole family crew coming in. Okay, so that's the first assignment, okay? The second assignment.
So it's not necessarily, I mean, not even an assignment, but the next thing we wanted to talk about real quick was in the book, he talks about the importance of a couple having 15 hours of undivided time.
15 hours a week.
A week.
One-on-one.
And so, and that's obviously looking back, that's another thing that we struggled with. I mean, just a ton. I mean, we would spend time together, but when we were together, we were on our phones, we were preoccupied with other things. And so honestly, I mean, we probably didn't have any just undivided attention that we were spending together.
Yeah, and I remember reading that and being like 15 hours. There's no, like, who has 15 hours to hang out with your spouse every week? But really, when you get intentional with it and when you start doing things that you're doing separately with your spouse, then it picks up really quick. So for instance, working out. For us, we have a morning routine where every single morning, we spend an hour together. That's an hour that we were not hanging out before. We were doing things that we were doing separately. Now we do it together. So that's 6 to 7 hours a week right there. So it's really not as hard. I mean, obviously, if your spouse is away traveling, you're going to have to get creative and like FaceTime or like do other things. But in a normal situation, 15 hours a week, and you guys need to be intentional with it. Think about maybe some things that you're doing separately. What are some things that you do separately that you could do together? Or what are some things that you could cut out?
Like if you're spending time, like I know for guys, like one of the emotional needs for guys is recreational activity. And he talks about this a lot in the book, how, I mean, a lot of guys have their time where they go spend with the guys during the week. And I mean, and that's fine. I mean, it's fine to spend time apart, but if we're not getting those 15 hours of undivided attention together, then I mean, we've got to reevaluate some of the things that we're doing apart. For us, we had to be very intentional about getting those 15 hours in. We would sit down at the beginning of the week and actually talk about what we were going to do to meet those 15 hours. And then it's kind of become, I mean, it becomes a habit after you do it for so many weeks. I mean, it just becomes a part of your routine.
Yeah, and we're going to actually spend a day talking about both of those things, recreational activities and the importance of that, and kind of how to get creative with it, and then also our morning routine and those things too. But so I want you guys to two things, breaking it down. First, do your deposits and your withdrawals. What makes you feel loved? What makes you kind of irritated with your spouse? Second, I want you guys to look at your week and look at your days and block out your 15 hours. Or figure out where you can spend more time with your spouse, or where you need to cut back on doing other things in order to be with your spouse. Because a lot of the times, it's like, if you're not in a good place in your relationship, you're going to have to make some sacrifices in order to get back to a good place. And then once you're in a good place, you need to continue doing those things that got you there. Otherwise, you're going to creep back to the place that you started in. So we still, this is like the video from Eck. Brick. But this is something that we constantly have to reevaluate and be like, hey,
we didn't do so good this week.
Yeah, we need to do better about this, or we need to get back on track with this, or maybe if we're feeling, if we're feeling like on edge with each other, we can be like, well, what are we missing the boat on? And then it's a constant thing. And he talks about in the book, he's like, basically, once you know the emotional needs of your spouse, then it's even worse than when you're not filling them, because you know what they need. Ignorance. You can't plead ignorance anymore. You know what they need. You know how to show them love. And then if you're not, it's just because you're choosing not to. And that's even worse. So hopefully you did the quiz.
Yeah, get the 2 things done.
And then do the 2 things for tonight. And I would really, really, really love it if you guys could comment with some of your deposits and withdrawals, because I feel like if people share, it'll just help give ideas to other people. Maybe they're having a hard time thinking of things. And anytime you share and you're open about it, it kind of just gets the wheels turned. Then you can be like, oh yeah, I love it when my spouse does this. Oh yeah, that does kind of tick me off. I should probably communicate that with him. Oh, I love this. Does that make sense? So, and we're going to be giving away a couple prizes at the end of the group. So, and it's going to be based off of engagement. So those that are commenting and are super engaged in the group will have a chance to win some goodies. All right. So have a good day, you guys, and we will see you back here tomorrow. Hopefully with less chaos. Bye, guys.